Imagine, if you will, the academic equivalent of total whiplash.
Okay, I'm listening.
Like, you are sitting in the fluorescent glow of an exam hall, right? Staring down your final exams.
Yeah.
And you breeze through them. I mean, perfect scores across the board. You walk out feeling completely untouchable.
Best feeling in the world.
Exactly. But the bizarre, maddening reality is that for the entire semester leading up to that final, you somehow managed to spectacularly fail every single basic pop quiz your teachers threw at you.
Oh, wow.
Right. Your overall grade is just an absolute mess, your professors are completely baffled, and nobody has any idea if you're a certified genius or just, incredibly lucky.
That is quite the picture.
Well, that exact head-spinning reality, that is exactly what it's like following the Ghana national football team, the Black Stars, into the 2026 World Cup.
It really is.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We have been looking through a mountain of sources for you today. Official squad announcements from the Ghana Football Association, historical performance metrics, betting market analyses, and some really deep tactical breakdowns.
Lots of data to sift through.
So much data. And the only logical conclusion I can draw from all of this is that this team is either going to win the entire tournament or completely implode on day one.
I mean, there is absolutely no middle ground with this squad.
None. So our mission today is to help you, the listener, understand exactly what makes this team tick. Because we are going to explore their chaotic path to qualification, the dramatic late arrival of a legendary manager, the devastating injury to their biggest star, and how a thrilling new generation of players might just drag them out of a brutal group stage.
It is the ultimate sporting paradox, really.
Yeah.
If you isolate one set of data from the last 2 years, they look like an unstoppable juggernaut.
Right.
But then, if you shift your focus just a few months in either direction, they look like an organization in total structural freefall.
Which is so confusing. Like, I am looking at these qualifying statistics from the Confederation of African Football, what's known as CAF, and I am honestly confused by the narrative surrounding this team.
Yeah, the numbers are wild.
You are telling me a squad that essentially bulldozed their way to North America is considered a chaotic wild card. Help me square this circle, because, on paper, their World Cup qualifying campaign in CAF Group I looks like a machine operating at peak efficiency.
It does, and that is precisely what makes their current situation so fascinating. Let's look at that qualifying run, because it forms the bedrock of this illusion.
Okay.
They were placed in Group I, and over the course of 10 matches, they secured 25 points out of a possible 30.
That's huge.
We're talking about 8 wins, 1 draw, and a single loss. In the incredibly physical, deeply unpredictable environment of African World Cup qualifiers, securing 25 points is not just good, it is dominant.
A machine-like level of consistency. And it wasn't just that they were scraping by with, 1-0 victories either.
Not at all. They scored 23 goals across those 10 games.
Wow.
That is well over 2 goals a match, while only conceding 6. They were suffocating opponents defensively and just punishing them in the final third.
Yeah.
And what stood out to analysts wasn't just the raw numbers, but the character they showed in incredibly tense situations. There was a specific match that perfectly encapsulates the euphoria of that run, their opening fixture against Madagascar.
Oh, the game in Kumasi.
Yeah.
The atmosphere at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium is always legendary, but you could literally feel the anxiety bleeding through the screen for that one.
Because the clock is ticking down, it is 0-0, and dropping points at home in your opening qualifier is usually a death sentence for a World Cup campaign.
Right. You just can't do it.
The pressure is mounting to a suffocating degree. And then, in the 96th minute, literally the final dying seconds of stoppage time, Iñaki Williams steps up.
The forward from Athletic Bilbao in Spain.
Exactly. He finds a sliver of space in a crowded penalty area and buries the winner. The stadium absolutely erupts.
I remember seeing the clips. It was bedlam.
Total bedlam. It is the kind of galvanizing moment that forces a locker room to believe they are a team of destiny.
And it wasn't just the European-based stars stepping up either. You also had that absolute shootout against the Central African Republic.
Oh, the 4-3 thriller.
Yeah.
That match was a masterclass in veteran composure. The Central African Republic came out swinging, exploiting some gaps in Ghana's midfield transition.
Which we'll talk more about later, those midfield gaps.
Right. But Jordan Ayew, a player with over 100 caps for the national team, simply put the entire squad on his back. He scored a hat-trick in a match where the stakes couldn't have been higher.
Amazing.
And just to prove it wasn't a fluke, Ghana went on to thrash that exact same Central African Republic team 5-0 in the return fixture played in Morocco. So you compile all this data, and the picture painted is of a clinical, resilient team that scores for fun.
Okay, so this brings me right back to the paradox.
Yeah.
I am looking at a team that takes 25 out of 30 points, scores 23 goals, and has veterans pulling them out of the fire. Why, then, was the entire national football apparatus in a state of absolute hair-on-fire panic just months before they board a plane for North America?
It's the pop quizzes.
I mean, it makes zero sense to fire your head coach when you are winning. What am I missing here?
You are missing the pop quizzes, like you said in the intro.
Ah.
The World Cup qualifiers were the final exams, but in the background, the underlying structure of the national team was collapsing in other equally vital competitions.
Right.
The turning point, the real catalyst for the chaos we are seeing now, was a monumental historical failure in late 2024. Ghana missed out on qualifying for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations entirely.
Wait, let me jump in here. For anyone listening who might not follow African football closely, missing AFCON for Ghana is not like missing some minor regional tournament.
Not at all.
It is culturally devastating. It would be like Brazil failing to qualify for the Copa America or Germany missing the European Championship.
Perfect comparison.
The Black Stars had not missed an AFCON tournament in over 2 decades. Competing for the African Championship is a fundamental expectation of the Ghanaian sporting identity.
Exactly. It was a seismic shock to the entire country. And what that failure revealed was deep systemic instability.
So the qualifiers were a mirage.
The wins in the World Cup qualifiers were essentially acting as a smokescreen, masking a severe tactical rot. The relationship between the head coach, Otto Addo, and the Ghana Football Association, the GFA, fractured completely.
I can imagine.
Trust eroded. The fans felt utterly betrayed. And the breaking point finally arrived during the international break in March 2026.
Just a few weeks ago, the team goes to Europe for what are supposed to be low-stakes tune-up matches, right?
Right. They were supposed to be confidence builders. Instead, they turned into a public autopsy of Otto Addo's tactical system.
Oh, man.
They played Austria in Vienna and were systematically dismantled. They lost 5-1.
A 5-1 loss for a team heading to the World Cup in 2 months. I have to imagine the defensive structure just evaporated.
It completely disintegrated. It was their heaviest defeat in 19 years.
Wow.
And the issue wasn't a lack of effort. It was a fundamental clash of footballing DNA.
What do you mean?
Well, Otto Addo was trying to implement a modern, highly expansive European style of play. He wanted a high defensive line and possession-based build-up.
Okay.
But he was doing this with a squad that had just spent 2 years grinding out results in the deeply physical, chaotic environment of African qualifying. You had center backs stepping up to press, leaving massive oceans of space behind them.
Oh, that's a recipe for disaster.
The Austrian forwards were just running into empty green grass all afternoon.
So they try to play like Manchester City, but they don't have the cohesive daily training to pull it off, and Austria just counterattacks them to death.
Precisely. And 3 days later, the nightmare continues. They go to Stuttgart, play Germany, and lose 2-1 in a match where they again looked entirely disjointed.
Yeah.
The GFA president, Kurt Okraku, saw the writing on the wall. You cannot take a team with zero defensive confidence and a fractured dressing room into a World Cup.
Just can't.
So, following emergency discussions with the sports ministry, Otto Addo was sacked in the early hours of March 31st.
So let's frame the reality of this situation for you listening. You are weeks away from the biggest sporting event on the planet. You have a squad that technically dominated its qualifying group, but their confidence has been shattered by the AFCON failure. They have just suffered their worst loss in 2 decades, and they have no manager.
It's a disaster.
Right. The GFA didn't just need a new tactician. They needed someone to stop the bleeding immediately. They needed a tactical trauma surgeon.
That is the most accurate way to look at the hiring of Carlos Queiroz in mid-April.
Yeah.
You do not bring Carlos Queiroz in to build a beautiful, free-flowing football academy with a 10-year vision. You bring him in to patch up the wounds, build a fortress, and win a street fight right now.
Queiroz is a fascinating figure. When I look at his resume, he comes across as a mercenary, but, you know, in the best possible sense of the word.
Absolutely.
He is a guy who parachutes into high-stress environments and gets results.
When Carlos Queiroz steps onto the touchline in North America, he will literally be making history. He will become only the 3rd manager ever to coach at 5 successive World Cups.
5. That is insane.
He guided Portugal there in 2010, and then he achieved something truly remarkable by taking Iran to 3 consecutive tournaments in 2014, 2018, and 2022.
Right.
Earlier in his career, he was Sir Alex Ferguson's trusted right-hand man at Manchester United, and he even managed Real Madrid. He understands the absolute pinnacle of global pressure.
But the crucial detail for the GFA, I assume, is that he isn't coming into the African football landscape blind?
Oh, that was the deciding factor. He has managed the South African national team, and he took Egypt all the way to the AFCON final in 2021.
Okay, so he gets it.
He knows the unique politics of African football federations. He knows how to navigate dressing rooms that are split between European-based superstars and local domestic players. When he took the job, he explicitly called it his biggest challenge and framed it as a mission rather than just another managerial stint.
So the surgeon arrives in mid-April. What is his immediate diagnosis? Because under Otto Addo, they had conceded 13 goals in 9 competitive games before the change. You can't survive a World Cup leaking goals like that.
No, you can't. His first move was to initiate a complete, ruthless, tactical metamorphosis.
Yeah.
He looked at Otto Addo's back three formation and immediately threw it in the trash.
Let's break down why that back three was so disastrous for them. Because on paper, playing with 3 center backs and 2 wing backs is supposed to give you a lot of attacking width while keeping you solid at the back, right?
In theory, yes. If you are a club team training together every single day, a back three allows your wing backs to bomb forward and overload the offense.
Right, like Inter Milan or Chelsea under Conte.
Exactly. But in practice, for a national team that only meets up a few times a year, it requires a level of synchronized communication that Ghana simply did not have. What would happen is a Ghanaian wingback would push up the field, turn the ball over, and suddenly the wide center back has to drift out to the touchline to cover the space.
Which leaves a massive gaping hole right in the middle of the penalty area.
Exactly. It devolved into a highly fragile, disorganized system. Opponents realized that if they transitioned quickly after winning the ball, they had a 40-yard highway straight to the Ghanaian goalkeeper.
Yikes.
Queiroz saw this and immediately installed a rigid, highly disciplined back four system, usually a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-3-3.
So he fundamentally changes the team's philosophy. It sounds like he's telling them, we are no longer going to try to dictate the game. We are going to make the other team uncomfortable.
That is the Queiroz blueprint. He wants them to abandon the idea of holding possession. His strategy is to drop the entire team into their own half, shrink the space between the defenders and the midfield, and choke the central passing lanes.
Okay.
He wants to absorb the opponent's pressure, frustrate them into making a mistake, and then exploit the spaces they leave behind with rapid vertical counterattacks.
But I have to wonder about the logistics of this. I mean, it is mid-April. The World Cup begins in June. National teams do not get the luxury of a 6-week preseason training camp.
No, they don't.
How does a manager install a brand new, highly complex defensive philosophy in a matter of weeks?
It is incredibly difficult, and it is where Queiroz showed real political brilliance and self-awareness. Normally, when a manager of his global stature takes over a national team, he brings an entourage of 10 assistants.
Right, cleans house entirely.
He sweeps the house clean and installs his own people in every role. Queiroz did not do that. He brought his long-term trusted assistant, Roger Dassah, to help run the tactical drills, but he intentionally retained key members of the local Ghanaian staff.
Yeah, the tactical breakdown notes, he kept Desmond Ofe, the assistant coach, Fatawu Dauda, the goalkeeper trainer, and John Paintsel. Why keep the old guard if you are trying to change the culture?
Because Queiroz needed translators, not for language, but for culture. He used them to fast-track the tactical integration.
Oh, that makes sense.
Those local coaches already know the complex interpersonal dynamics of the squad. They know who responds well to aggressive criticism, who needs an arm around their shoulder, and who holds the quiet influence in the locker room. Right.
Queiroz provided the defensive blueprint, but he relied on Ofe, Dauda, and Paintsel to instantly sell it to the players.
And we actually got a glimpse of this hybrid coaching model in action very recently. June 2nd, Ghana travels to Cardiff to play Wales in a pre-tournament friendly.
Yes.
This was Queiroz's official debut on the touchline, and from the reports, it was a game with dual personalities.
It was a fascinating 90 minutes because it visually demonstrated the growing pains of this tactical shift. The first half was an absolute mess.
Really?
It looked exactly like the dysfunctional era under Otto Addo. The players were caught in two minds. They were trying to press high, but the movements were poorly coordinated. The fullbacks pushed up at the wrong times and were completely exposed.
So Wales is just having their way with them.
Wales dominated the midfield and easily controlled the tempo.
But then they go into the locker room at halftime. What happens? Queiroz makes his adjustments. He doesn't panic. He simplifies. He tells them to stop chasing the ball. When they emerged for the second half, it was a rough ocean. Ghana set up in a synchronized mid-block.
For the listener, what exactly does a mid-block look like on the pitch?
Imagine dividing the soccer field into 3 horizontal thirds. Instead of pressing the opponent high up near their own goal, or dropping all the way back into your own penalty area, the entire team positions themselves in that middle third of the field.
Okay, so a wall in the middle.
Exactly. The goal isn't to win the ball immediately. The goal is to create a dense, impenetrable wall of players in the center of the pitch. You force the opponent to pass the ball out wide where it's less dangerous.
Right.
And the moment the opponent tries to force a pass through the middle and makes a poor touch, that is your pressing trigger.
And that is exactly how they scored. In the 66th minute, this new synchronized mid-block forces a Welsh midfielder into a sloppy pass. Ghana wins the ball, and the transitional speed is terrifying. They launch a rapid counterattack, catching the Welsh defense completely flat-footed, and a 20-year-old midfielder named Caleb Yarenki scores.
Wales did manage to snatch a 1-1 draw with a scrappy goal in stoppage time, but that second half was everything Credos needed. It was proof of concept.
Yeah.
It proved to the players that if they suffer without the ball, maintain their shape, and wait for their moment, this system can be incredibly dangerous.
So the trauma surgeon has stopped the bleeding. The defensive block is starting to solidify. The players are buying into this counterattacking identity.
Things are looking up.
Right. But just as the puzzle pieces are coming together, they suffer an absolute tragedy. A plot twist that forces Carlos Queiroz to look at his attacking playbook and essentially throw it in the fire.
It is the kind of narrative gut punch you simply cannot plan for. We have to talk about the devastating injury to Mohamed Kudus.
And we really need to emphasize who Mohamed Kudus is to this team. We are not just talking about a good player. We are talking about the sun around which the entire Ghanaian attacking solar system orbits.
It is impossible to overstate the magnitude of this loss. Mohamed Kudus, the brilliant playmaker for Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League, was the undisputed creative engine of the Black Stars.
Yeah.
He possesses this incredibly rare combination of a low center of gravity, immense physical strength, and the technical ability to take 3 defenders out of the game with a single drop of his shoulder.
He is a proven performer on the biggest stages, too. Like, he scored 2 spectacular goals at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, and he's the guy who scored the vital winning goal against Comoros in the very qualifiers that secured their ticket to North America.
In Queiroz' new counterattacking system, Kudus was the ultimate release valve. When you absorb pressure for 80 minutes, you need a player who can receive a clearance, hold off 2 center backs, and orchestrate the transition. Kudus was that guy.
And then the injury happens.
But the timeline of his injury is just a slow-moving nightmare. It all started back on January 4th, 2026. He suffered a quadriceps injury playing a league match for Spurs.
Which is concerning, but usually a quad strain means you miss a month or 2. You do your rehab, and you are perfectly fine for a summer tournament.
That was the initial expectation. But during his rehabilitation, he suffered a complex hamstring issue that delayed his return. And then, just as he was finally getting back to full fitness, the absolute worst-case scenario materialized. A devastating ACL tear in training. He was officially and permanently ruled out of the World Cup.
The psychological blow to a locker room when you lose your talisman in that manner has to be immeasurable. I mean, you were already learning a new defensive system, you were already dealing with the pressure of the tournament, and now the guy you rely on to create magic out of nothing is gone.
It creates a profound tactical and emotional void. Suddenly, the central creative hub of the team is non-existent. Queiroz had to scramble to adjust the squad. He called up Brandon Thomas Asante, a hard-working forward from Coventry City, and physically handed him the iconic number 10 shirt. But the reality that everyone in the Ghanaian camp understands is that you cannot replace Mohamed Kudus like for like.
So if you can't replace the player, how do you replace the production? What does the loss of Kudus actually mean for the mechanics of how Ghana tries to score?
It means the entire architectural weight of the offense has shifted from the center of the pitch out to the wings.
Oh, I see.
Without a central playmaker to thread passes through the middle, Ghana is going to have to rely entirely on their wide players to isolate defenders, win one-on-one battles, and create chances from the flanks.
Okay.
And to compound the misery, it wasn't just the attacking unit that suffered late casualties.
Right. The defense, the very thing Queiroz was brought in to fix, took a massive hit just days before the tournament.
On June 1st, while finalizing their preparations, Their starting center back, Alexander Dzeko, went down with a severe hamstring injury.
Brutal timing.
The medical staff ruled him out for at least 6 weeks. Queiroz had to make an emergency late call-up for Derek Lucassen, a defender who plays his club football in Cyprus, just to have enough bodies in training.
So let us take stock of where we are. We have a team that collapsed tactically in friendlies, fired their coach, hired a pragmatic mercenary manager at the 11th hour, is trying to master a completely new defensive philosophy on the fly, and has just lost their most creative player and a starting center back to injury.
It sounds like a script for a movie.
It really does. At this point, the natural question is, who is actually left to step into the spotlight? When the whistle blows in North America, what does the squad look like?
The roster that Queiroz has assembled is a fascinating, almost contradictory mix.
How so?
On one hand, you have aging legends clinging on for one last ride on the international stage. On the other hand, you have some of the most highly valued, electric young European prodigies in the world.
Let's start by looking at the player who now inherits the immense burden of being the primary goal-scoring threat. With Kudus gone, the crown jewel of this attack is Antoine Semenyo.
And if you're going to rely on one man to carry an offense, Antoine Semenyo is arriving at this tournament in the absolute form of his life.
Yeah, he's been incredible.
He just secured a sensational £64 million transfer to Manchester City. In the grueling environment of the Premier League this past season, he scored 17 goals and provided 4 assists. He is the quintessential modern transition weapon.
When I watch his highlights, the thing that stands out isn't just his speed, it's his sheer physicality. He doesn't just run past defenders, he runs through them.
He has the physical profile of a battering ram. He can stretch elite defensive lines entirely on his own. Without Kudus, Semenyo is the undisputed spearhead.
Right.
Think about how Queiroz low block operates. Ghana will have 9 men behind the ball, absorbing wave after wave of attacks. When they finally win the ball back, they don't have time to build up slowly.
No time at all.
They're going to launch a 50-yard pass up the field towards Semenyo. His job is to trap that ball, hold off a world-class center back like John Stones or Dzeko Gvardiol, and either turn and shoot or hold it just long enough for his wingers to sprint up the pitch and support him.
Okay, so Semenyo is the spearhead. But to launch a successful counterattack, you need a player sitting deep in the midfield who can actually win the ball back and have the vision to play that pinpoint 50-yard pass.
Yes.
That brings us to the tactical anchor of the team, Thomas Partey.
Partey brings unquestionable elite pedigree. He plays for Villarreal in Spain. He has accumulated 57 international caps, and he scored 15 goals for his country.
He's been around forever.
He has. When he has the ball at his feet, he possesses the composure and the passing range to completely dissect opposition lines from deep areas. He's the metronome of the team, but there is a glaring, undeniable red flag hovering over him.
His physical fragility, I mean, he is like a vintage sports car. When the engine is humming, it is beautiful to watch, but you are constantly terrified that the transmission is going to blow out at the next turn.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
His physical durability has been a major, persistent issue over the last few years.
Okay.
He frequently misses long stretches of the club season with muscular injuries.
Right.
And in that recent friendly against Wales, analysts noted that he looked incredibly heavy leg and noticeably off the pace.
So if I am looking at this tactical chessboard,
Yeah.
If Thomas Partey is aging, visibly slower, and highly prone to injury, how on earth does Carlos Queiroz expect him to survive a highly compact, incredibly intense tournament schedule?
It's a huge problem.
Especially against elite European teams whose entire game plan revolves around relentlessly pressing the midfield.
The blunt reality is that Queiroz knows Partey cannot survive on an island. If Queiroz attempts to play Partey as a lone defensive pivot, meaning he's the only midfielder sitting just in front of the defenders, he will be completely overrun, or his body will simply break down under the physical load of having to cover 12 kilometers a game.
So what's the fix?
To solve this, Queiroz is forced to use a double pivot. He has to pair Thomas Partey with a younger, tireless runner. He needs a mechanic next to the vintage sports car.
I like that.
Someone who can do all the dirty physical work, cover the lateral spaces out wide, and allow Partey to just focus on intercepting and distributing the ball.
Someone like Elisha Owusu or Eureka, and here is where the scouting reports get genuinely thrilling. The newly discovered 20-year-old prodigy, Caleb Urinki.
If you want to talk of the absolute vanguard of progress for the Ghanaian national team, the player who could define their midfield for the next decade, it is Caleb Urinki.
Let's really geek out over this kid for a minute because his rise has been meteoric.
Yeah, it has.
He is only 20 years old. He plays his club football for FC Nordsjælland in Denmark. He's currently valued at around 10 million euros, but that number is going to skyrocket because he just won the Danish Superliga Young Player of the Year award, registering 2 goals and 6 assists from a deep midfield position.
Huge achievement for a 20-year-old.
People in the Ghanaian press are already placing a massive burden on his shoulders by calling him the new Essien, referencing the legendary Michael Essien.
It is a massive comparison, but it is not just empty hype. The underlying data supports it.
Really?
Urienki is an elite, ferocious tackler. Despite his youth, he displays immense tactical discipline. He knows exactly when to step up and when to hold his position. And his physical capacity to win the ball deep in his own half and simply drive it forward through traffic is astounding.
We saw that against Wales, right?
We saw the exact impact he can have in that Wales game. When he came off the bench, the entire tempo of the match shifted. He injected raw, youthful intensity, disrupted the Welsh midfield, and obviously scored the goal. He is the exact kind of dynamic two-way engine that Queiroz desperately needs to make this counterattacking system viable and to protect Thomas Partey from being exposed.
It creates this incredible stark contrast within the squad. You have these electric, fearless youths like Urienki, and then you have the old guard who've seen it all. Look at the captain, Jordan Ayew.
Jordan Ayew is a fascinating case study because his current situation perfectly mirrors the transitional awkwardness this team is experiencing.
How so?
Well, he plays for Leicester City. He has a staggering 120 international caps and has scored 34 goals for Ghana. His leadership, his experience, and his calming presence in a dressing room that has been through absolute hell over the last few months are absolutely vital.
But his physical profile doesn't fit the new blueprint.
Exactly. Tactically, he presents a severe dilemma for Queiroz. Ayew only scored 6 goals in a domestic campaign where Leicester City was ultimately relegated to League One.
Right.
More importantly, at this stage in his career, he simply does not have the explosive top-end pace required to play as a lone striker in a pure transition system.
Right. If the entire game plan is to absorb pressure for 5 minutes, win the ball, and ask your forwards to sprint 60 yards down the field before the opponent's defense can recover, you need actual sprinters.
You need Olympic-level speed, which is why you are likely going to see Jordan Ayew utilized in a very different way.
Like off the bench.
He might be deployed out wide as a hard-working defensive winger who just helps protect the fullbacks, or Queiroz might use him exclusively as a substitute to kill off games late on.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the options Ghana has on the flanks, they have absolute terrifying lightning.
The electric youth movement out wide, we are talking about guys like 21-year-old Christopher Bonsuba. Now, he plays for Al Qudsiya. Isn't that in the Saudi Pro League?
It is.
I have to ask, is a 21-year-old winger really getting the kind of high-level, intense developmental experience in Saudi Arabia needed to come in and impact a World Cup against Premier League defenders?
You would normally be skeptical, but the production is impossible to ignore. He just logged 12 assists this season. He is a highly technical, left-footed dribbler who operates with supreme confidence.
Wow.
He is an absolute one-on-one nightmare for fullbacks. He provides a brilliant outlet when Ghana is pinned deep. And he is not alone. Alongside him, you have Ernest Nuama from Lyon in the French League and Kamaldeen Sulemana from Atalanta in Italy.
So Queiroz has an arsenal of speed to choose from.
He does. And that young core gives Queiroz a very specific tactical luxury. It gives him the ability to sit deep, defend stubbornly for 70 minutes, wear the opposition down, and then, when the opposing center backs have heavy legs, unleash these fresh, incredibly fast, direct wingers to wreak havoc in the final 20 minutes.
But all of this counterattacking speed, all of this youthful exuberance on the wings means absolutely nothing if you cannot actually keep the ball out of your own net in the first place.
Yeah.
And that is where Queiroz made what might be his most surprising gamble of the entire campaign, turning to a goalkeeper who wasn't even in the international picture a few years ago.
It is a remarkable, feel-good story amidst all the chaos. We have to highlight Benjamin Assar. After the catastrophic failure at the AFCON tournament, the GFA and the coaching staff realized they needed a change between the posts.
Right.
They turned to Assar, who plays his domestic football for Hearts of Oak right there in the Ghana Premier League. When he was given the nod, he became the first local, domestically based keeper to start a competitive fixture for the national team since 2015.
Talk about stepping into a pressure cooker. The defense in front of him is leaking goals, the fans are irate, the media is scrutinizing every move, and he has to come in and immediately command the penalty area.
He stepped into an absolute firestorm, and surprisingly, he stabilized it. He isn't the tallest or the most physically imposing keeper, but he has elite cat-like reflexes and highly impressive distribution skills, which is crucial when you want to launch quick counterattacks.
Yeah, you need a keeper who can pass.
There's still some valid scouting concerns regarding his authority when coming off his line to command the box and deal with high crosses, but you cannot argue with the results.
The stats back him up.
Absolutely. His integration into the starting lineup coincided with the defense suddenly going on a mean streak. After conceding 13 goals in 9 games under Otto Addo, with Assar involved, they conceded just once in their next 6 World Cup qualifiers.
Okay, so we have the complete picture of the squad. We have a pragmatic, defensive surgeon of a manager in Carlos Queiroz. We have a fragile midfield anchor in Thomas Partey, who desperately needs the tireless energy of 20-year-old Caleb Urenki to survive.
Yeah.
We have a 64 million pound battering ram up front in Antoine Semenyo, a bench full of blazing fast 21-year-old speedsters, and a local hero in goal. Now, let us look at the ultimate test. Taking this patched-together, psychologically bruised squad into the absolute fire of Group L.
Group L is widely regarded by analysts as one of the most demanding, tactically diverse groups in this newly expanded 48-team World Cup format. It is a gauntlet of different footballing styles.
Let's set the landscape by looking at the betting markets, because the odds makers usually strip away the emotion and give us the cold, hard reality.
Let's hear it.
England is the runaway, heavy favorite to win the group at 49 odds. Croatia, with all their pedigree, is a strong second at 103. Ghana sits way back in third at 141 or 151 just to win the group. Panama are viewed as extreme outsiders at anywhere from 351 to 491.
Makes sense.
And if you are feeling incredibly bold or perhaps a bit crazy, Ghana's outright odds to win the entire tournament are sitting at a massive 4,001.
Those odds are a completely fair reflection of the chaos the team has endured. The odds makers see a team that fired its coach, lost its star player, and is trying to learn a new system.
Exactly.
This is a sequence of 3 matches where the margin for error is essentially 0, and the entire trajectory of their tournament hinges on match day 1, June 17th. Face Panama at BM Field in Toronto.
Looking at the schedule, this match is non-negotiable. If you want to survive Group L, you cannot afford to drop points here. It is an absolute must-win.
It is the axis upon which their entire World Cup campaign rotates. Panama is the lowest-ranked team in the group, and historically their tactical setup struggles immensely against teams that play at a high tempo in transition.
Right.
They like to commit bodies forward, which leaves them vulnerable to the exact type of counterattack Queiroz is building.
So if there was ever a game for Semenyo, Nuama, and Bonsuba to announce themselves to the world, this is it.
Right. If Ghana's young wingers can fire early, exploit the spaces behind the Panamanian fullbacks, and secure 3 points, it changes the entire math of the group. And importantly, a 1-0 win might not be enough. They need a healthy, positive goal difference.
Right, because of the new format.
Exactly. For you listening who might be adjusting to this new 48-team format, advancing isn't just about finishing in the top 2 anymore. 4 of the best third-place teams across the entire tournament will also advance to the knockout stages.
So every goal matters.
Establishing a baseline of 3 points and a strong goal difference on day 1 is absolutely critical for survival.
Because if they don't get the points against Panama, the mountain they have to climb on match day 2 becomes almost vertical. June 23rd, they travel down to Gillette Stadium in Boston to face England.
This is a massive, daunting step up in sheer, overwhelming quality.
England's qualifying record under their new manager, Thomas Tuchel, is legitimately terrifying. They played 8 matches, won all 8, scored 22 goals, and conceded 0. Literally 0 goals.
They boast world-class Champions League winning players in every single position on the pitch. You were looking at a spine of Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, and Declan Rice.
Yeah.
The objective for Carlos Queiroz in this match is not to entertain. The objective is pure, unadulterated damage limitation.
So what does the tactical blueprint look like against an opponent that superior? You obviously do not go out and try to play pretty expansive passing football against Jude Bellingham.
Absolutely not. As we discussed with the friendlies against Austria and Germany, if Ghana tries to play open, expansive football against an elite European pressing team, their defensive structure fractures.
They'll just get destroyed.
They will be carved to pieces. Queiroz is going to deploy the most extreme version of his ultra-defensive low block.
He is going to turn the defensive third of the pitch into an absolute swamp.
That is the perfect way to describe it. He doesn't even necessarily care about winning the ball back cleanly to launch attacks. He just wants to make sure that every single time Harry Kane or Phil Foden takes a touch, They are immediately wading through 3 physical Ghanaian bodies.
Right.
He will compress the space so tightly that there is simply no room for England to thread a pass. It will be ugly. It will be a street fight. They will contest every physical duel, every aerial ball, and every second ball.
Just grind it out.
The dream scenario is to frustrate England into a 0-0 draw. But if they do lose, the goal is to keep it to a 1-0 or 2-0 defeat. You absolutely cannot afford to get blown out 4-0 here and destroy the goal difference you built against Panama.
Which brings us to the final act of the group stage, Match Day 3, the chess match. June 27th against Croatia at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia.
This one is interesting.
I look at this stylistic matchup, and it's fascinating. It is where raw, youthful speed meets ageless, methodical possession.
It is a profound clash of footballing philosophies. Croatia, still orchestrated by the ageless Luka Modric in midfield and anchored by Željko Gvardiol at the back, are the ultimate masters of dictating the tempo of a game.
Yeah, they just control everything.
They do not want to track meet. They want to hold the ball, make you chase shadows, pass it around horizontally, and slowly, surgically dissect your defensive show.
But if I'm thinking like Carlos Queiroz, doesn't a team that wants to slowly pass the ball in front of my defense play perfectly into my hands?
It does, provided Ghana did their job in the first match.
Yeah.
If Ghana comes into this game with 3 points from the Panama fixture, all the pressure is on Croatia to break them down. Ghana does not need to force the issue. They can sit incredibly comfortably in that synchronized mid-block we saw against Wales. They can allow Croatia to have 70% possession in harmless areas of the pitch, absorb the pressure, and wait.
Just biding their time.
It's exactly. The defining weakness of this Croatian team is that they have an aging midfield and an aging defense, particularly when they lose the ball and have to sprint back to defend in transition.
And Ghana has the sprinters.
Queiroz will look to use the raw speed of Semenyo and the young wingers late in the second half to exploit those heavy Croatian legs. It's the ultimate rope-a-dope strategy.
So as we zoom out, what does this all mean for you listening? We have mapped out this incredibly chaotic, emotionally draining narrative.
It really is a roller coaster.
You are looking at a team that statistically dominated their qualifying group, suffered a culturally devastating failure by missing their continental championship, fired their manager in disgrace, hired a pragmatic mercenary weeks before the tournament, lost their best player to an ACL tear, and is now banking everything on a tactical revolution fueled by 20-year-old prodigies.
It is a masterclass in watching a sporting organization attempt to adapt and survive under extreme duress.
Yep.
The odds makers have them at 4,001 to win the tournament. And honestly, that is a fair reflection of the sheer amount of institutional chaos they have navigated. But if you look closely at those same betting markets, and if you analyze the specific tactical matchups within Group L, the data points to Ghana advancing to the knockout stages.
Really?
Yeah, highly likely as one of the best third-place teams, as a very plausible outcome.
If Queiroz's pragmatic swamp holds firm against England, if the young wingers exploit Panama, and if Antoine Semenyo and Caleb Urenki play up to their immense potential, they can absolutely escape this gauntlet of a group.
I agree completely.
And if you were sitting there looking at your tournament bracket, wondering if you should invest your emotional energy into this deeply unpredictable team, I want to leave you with a final, tantalizing thought.
Oh, this is good.
Consider what happens if Carlos Queiroz actually pulls this off and they advance out of Group L history. Tells us that in the 2010 World Cup, when Ghana suffered a heartbreaking exit in the quarterfinals, and again in the 2022 World Cup, their dreams were shattered by the exact same ultimate demon, the nation of Uruguay.
The history between those two nations is incredibly bitter. The sporting scars run incredibly deep.
Could this patched together, psychologically scarred, lightning-fast squad be on a collision course for the ultimate cathartic revenge match in the knockout stages? Could Carlos Queiroz, the ultimate tactical mercenary, engineer a masterclass to finally slay the ghost of Uruguay?
That would be something.
That is something to keep a very close eye on as the bracket unfolds in North America. But, of course, that is a deep dive for another day.